Hi, this is Professor Nugent, and I just want to review round three of the Zoom simulation for strategic management. And to start off, let's first talk about I'm in my practice game, and I just completed round three, and I'm in round four, and you can see here that I didn't do so well in points. I have 120 points, and so I'm disappointed. Why did I do so poorly from round three to four? And I think many of you have been noticing it's getting difficult to keep up with the competition as more and more students in our game figure out what they should be doing, making the right moves, stealing more market share from you, and it's becoming overall our class is becoming very competitive. Now, here's some mistakes some students are still making. Make sure that your profit margins are going up. Here, my profit margins went down by 10 points. My operational went down by 14 points, and my net went down by 18 points. By 10 points. So I lost a lot of points. So whenever your profit margins go down, you're going to lose points, not only in your profit margin categories, but also in your return on equities and return on asset categories. So that's the number one. Always make sure that you increase your profit margins, and not by 1 or 2%. You want to go up maybe between 4 and 6% if you can. Because you want to increasing those profit margins leads to most ratios doing better in the class. Second question I have from a lot of students is I'm not making a lot of points in my forecast. So here I actually made some points because of I had a poor forecast in year two, but for truck and luxury I had a perfect forecast, and I had a perfect forecast again. And unfortunately, you don't get any points for doing just as good as you did last round. So the best thing you can do in the forecasting area is just not lose points. So if you have perfect scores and you go to the next round with perfect scores and you didn't lose any points, you're doing good. It's not really an opportunity to gain points here. So you're not looking to use these forecasting areas as an avenue to gain points, because you're expected to be able to forecast pretty close to 100%. So there's not a lot of points to be had here. But if you do have a bad round, like I did in round, going into round from 2 to 3, and I only had an 80% and 75% accuracy on my forecast, then I'll make some of those points back. So here, if you do wind up losing some points and you get back to a good forecast the next round, you make them back. But this is not going to be a significant area of points. Now, in round three, I saw that my company wasn't being competitive and I was falling behind, and it was very hard for me to earn points. So I poured a lot of money into operational investments. I more than doubled my operational investments, and I got 100 points for increasing my operational investments 100%. And this is going to help me be more competitive. So you'll see how I can go from a 120-point round to a much more successful round. Sometimes in this game, you can't always get 500 points a round or 600 points a round. Sometimes you have a round or two where your points are going to be around 300, 400, but you're setting yourself up, you're investing in your company. You may have purchased a lot of capacity or a lot of investments that round, and it's going to be hard to really get those 500 plus points that you want. But that's okay, because if you invest wisely, even if you have a round where you don't make the maximum points, the following round, if you made the right investments, those points will come back to you. So it's not really, you don't have to worry about having an even flow of 500 points every round to get to your 3,000 points. You can have a couple rounds where you have 300 or 400 points, and then the next round have 600 or 800 points. So it's not going to be a game where you're going to get a steady return of points. It's very difficult to do that, especially in the middle of the game like we are, where we're starting to really ramp up our assets by making additional investments. So it's getting harder and harder to have the returns we're looking for. But this will pay off towards the end of the game. Okay, so I'm going to set up my, so if I go back, I was working off a profit margin. My profit margin is from 57% down to 47%. Which is not good. My investors really hate that. So I'm going to build my car. And see if I can get my profit margins back up. Okay. Now you can see here, see how my operational cost reductions are 4,800 now. Because I invested in my operational cost reductions, I will be able to more easily maintain my profit margins, because I've invested so heavily in reducing my costs. And that's the key to keep maintaining your profitability, is reducing your costs and maintaining or increasing your prices. All right. So here I'm at 51. There we go, back up to 57. Increase the forecast on that. Okay. I'm just slamming in numbers here, so I wouldn't do exactly as I'm doing. I'm not. Okay, so let's talk about luxury. Now, when we talk about luxury, remember that luxury is an illusion. And the thing about why the 5% on importance factor for the price, if it isn't priced high, you should always have your luxury car at the highest price possible. The reason people buy luxury cars is to show other people, hey, look, I'm rich, I can afford this. If your luxury car was selling for $5,000 or $10,000, even though it's still all the quality in a luxury car, it's still not saying that you're wealthy. So a lot of what people care about when they buy luxury items is to show the world, hey, I'm doing well. Look at me, I got this car. And so the price doesn't really matter. You're not buying these luxury items to save money. If you were, you would have bought a more economy class model. People are buying luxury items because they do care about their image, and they also care about quality. So last class I was talking about the profitability of companies and who are continuing to cut back on costs. That's not necessarily the same thing as cutting back on, say, quality. So let's just look at a few companies here. Apple Computers. I think we can all agree that Apple Computers have a higher quality than just a regular PC. That the MacBook Pro is going to cost you double or triple the amount a similar powered PC would cost you. Why is that? Well, definitely Apple is putting some higher grade components in there, especially in their display, with the Retina display, in their keyboards, and the design. So you are getting a product that has more expensive components in it. However, that doesn't mean they're selling it at almost no profit. Because they've built up their marketing and advertising strategy so well and got a brand name that stands for quality, they're able to charge 3 times the price of a PC. Now, who makes more profit? The PCs are selling at very little profit. Say you have a $500 PC versus a $1,500 Mac Pro book. The $500 PC, the profit the manufacturer is making on that machine is, if they're lucky, $40 to $50. The profit Apple's going to make on a MacBook Pro is going to be more like $500 to $700. If you look at the iPhones, the profit margins on those products are insane. Now, they realize that they can't charge $1,500, or an iPhone, if you buy it without a contract, is about $750. They can't charge that amount unless they actually have their benefits to the product outweigh the costs. So the consumers feel that these Apple products, the benefits are much higher than the costs, and Apple actually does put in some high quality and expensive components. But because they're selling it at a luxury status, they could charge a lot for their product and you'll still buy it. So, but don't get that confused. Apple is still looking to reduce costs, and they don't want to buy the most expensive display possible to sell to you. They want to buy a display that looks the best possible, but they're going to shop around until they get the best price on that assembly and on those materials in the manufacturing of that Retina display. So they don't go out of the way just to spend money to have the best possible. They're also looking to control their costs and maintain and increase their profit margins. And because Apple's so good at increasing the profit margins along with their revenues, is one of the reasons the stock went from $15 to $500 or $600 or whatever it's at now. It's a lot of money. So you don't always have to have. If you mistakenly thought that increasing price and reducing costs leads to an inferior, cheap product that's a piece of junk, which some people have expressed to me, that's not exactly what I'm saying. the strategy of the company. Where, are you going to be a luxury goods? Is your strategy going to be luxury goods? If your strategy is luxury goods, and I worked for a company many years ago that made luxury vitamins, or vitamins that cost $90 for 90 tablets of a multivitamin. Now, they were selling. I do agree that their ingredients were better, whole food, natural ingredients of their product at twice the cost of the nearest competitor, as far as the assembly and the sourcing and the making of their multivitamins. However, the $10 the 90 tablets multivitamin that sells maybe for $15. The cost of that product may be, say, $4. The cost of the high quality product may be $8, but they're selling one at 15 and the other at 60. So you can make much higher profit margins by having, paying a little bit more for your ingredients components, but if you don't marry that up with a very smart marketing campaign to say, hey, you deserve the best. This is the highest quality product you can buy, and that's why that's why it costs so much. And it's a great strategy because it works for various manufacturers. Now, we also, everybody's familiar with the Coach handbags. I was astonished at how much one of these bags will cost. Here's one for 300. Actually, I think that's quite reasonable compared to some of them. I'm not an expert on handbags, but let's see. Here, there's got to be some that are much more expensive. All right. All right, these seem more reasonable. I thought they were a lot more money, but still, it is a premium compared to, from the very low end of handbags that I can only assume would be like $40 or less. But Coach has built a premium brand name. I feel a little weird talking about handbags. So they also have wallets here. Let's go over to that. Okay. Let's go to the men's section. Be a little bit more comfortable there. Okay. So men's wallets. Let's look at that. Okay. So a man's wallet, $118 for a wallet. Now, I have purchased wallets, pretty decent wallets, and usually they're under $40. Why is Coach making a wallet basically a piece of leather with a couple compartments in it? Why is this costing $118? Well, I'm sure they use very fine leather and have very nice stitching, but what they're selling here is the name of Coach. And definitely their product has quality, but they're not going out of their way to make a product that costs $100 only to sell it for $118. I'm sure they're, maybe a $40 wallet costs $8 to make. Their $118 wallet, I'm sure maybe costs $30 to make. So they're making, their money on each wallet being sold probably at a higher profit margin than the more traditional affordable wallets. But Coach is not going to just waste their money. They are just like Apple and Maserati, which I'm going to come to next. They are constantly looking for a more efficient way to manufacture their goods. They're looking to get the same or better quality materials, but at a lower price, buying in bulk, other purchasing strategies, maybe buying a company that does a sub-assembly. So these companies are also looking, how can I raise the price, reduce my costs, and make a higher profit margin? And of course, if you look at Maserati, if we're talking about automobiles, here's a car that has extremely huge amounts of luxury, prestige. Now, the secret here is these cars don't cost that much more to manufacture than some other cars that you may even be driving. So maybe the car that you're driving, maybe it's a $30,000 car, you purchased it for $30,000, and it cost the manufacturer $25,000 to make. These Maseratis can sell for a great deal more than that, and they're probably, maybe the profit margin in the car that you purchased was 20%. Maserati might be making more like 40%, 50% of their profit margins compared the price to the cost of their car. And again, they're selling luxury. They're selling a car that lets people know, hey, I'm so wealthy I can afford this car. That's how great I am. It's a psychology. There's a lot of psychology in advertising, building a brand, a strategy for placement of your brand and your product. And the whole goal of everything is profits. The whole goal is profits. In the simulation game, in the strategy book we're looking at, in every company, their goal is how can we increase the price, reduce the cost, and make more profits. And last week we talked about food manufacturers that were shrinking the amount of food you got by giving you the illusion you're getting the same size product to reduce their costs, and you get you know a product that you believe is the same as it was a month ago, and you're paying the same amount of money for it. Or they outsource cane sugar and put in high fructose corn syrup to save money, because that's the name of the game. Now, if you have a great strategy and you can spend the time and you have the strategic long-term planning to build a quality luxury brand name, then those are definitely the most profitable of all companies out there. A luxury company is selling the luxury name. That's what you're buying. It's 40% of the cost of whatever you're buying is that name. The rest of the material, and that name is not, they spent a lot of money creating the name, advertising it, getting people to understand it. It means luxury, it represents something, and that's really where they're investing their money in. Now the product, if they're selling a luxury product, it's got to have quality behind it. Otherwise, they'll quickly tarnish all the money they spent to build their brand name. But you have to understand that these companies are still trying to make cars that, they have all the luxury features and they can afford to, because they're selling their cars at 3 or 4 times the amount of the average car. But the cost of these additional luxury features may only be minimal compared to the excessive price. So they could charge 5 times the price, but the cost of building the car is 2 or 2.5 times the cost of just a regular standard type of car. So there's a big disparity. The profits are going up and the price is going up much faster than the costs are in a lot of these luxury goods. Okay, just to kind of complement what I was saying, I was talking more about low-end goods last class, and I don't want people to get the impression that nobody makes any quality goods. There are people who make products that have high quality, that you get a very decently made product that has very rich interiors and luxury and exteriors and features, but you know what? You're paying for that. A company doesn't make a great product with high quality and not raise the price dramatically to account for it. And even when they do that, even when they do make these cars or handbags or computers, they are sure to make sure that they can get their money for what they're selling you. Their profits, and they don't stop. They don't ever stop looking at ways to cut costs, further the quality of the brand name and increase prices. Now, just because you make a high quality car doesn't mean there's some efficiencies in the manufacturing. There's better sourcing avenues. There's better suppliers to get the same or better quality materials for less costs. These are all strategies companies have to continually employ and continually work at to keep above the competition. Now that's the same thing in the Zoom simulation, that when you're working in the Zoom simulation, you are fighting against everybody else in the industry. So it is getting tougher because this is a very smart class. Everybody's doing very well in the simulation, and as you move forward, it gets even tougher because you're competing against such star players. Now remember, in the Zoom simulation, I do expect you to fill out these reflective observations. And this is what's supposed to help you think about what you're doing, have an idea what your strategy is, and the students that do fill this out and fill it out generously are going to get a better idea of what they're trying to do in this game and get a little time to reflect upon what they've done and where they're moving forward. And I'm also going to give extra credit points to 1 or 2 students I feel did a really good job in filling these out. Now, if from this point out, if you fail to fill these out, you're not completing the assignment. The assignment isn't just putting numbers in boxes. The assignment is to think about what you're doing, fill out these reflective observations, compete with your fellow classmates, and not everybody is gonna that you're competing with each other at a way that the increased competition is going to make it hard for everyone to earn the points they need to get an A in this project. Okay. Okay, so I'm in the production page, and I need to ramp up. I have I'm gonna have to ramp up my capacity a great deal. I'm spending a lot of money on the capacity. Um, and now, again, these forecasts, I just put them in quickly. It's not meant for you to copy me and do exactly what I'm doing, but I'm also going to continue to invest um, in my operations. And this is why the reflective observations are important. So down here, when I talk about the capacity utilization, I've seen some students buy a whole complete production plant for 10 million only to make 100 cars. And that's what really, you're buying a big asset and you're not getting a huge return on your asset. So if you wonder why your total asset return or your return on assets is a low percentage or losing points in an area, it's because you may be over purchasing assets you're not fully utilizing. And that's what this reflective observation here is important to get you to kind of realize, are you getting the most out of your capacity that you purchased? And then down here, the operational investments, if you're reading this question, what is your strategy for operational investments and how will these new investments affect your company's performance? So if you're thinking about these questions as you're filling out these pages, it helps you to perform better in the simulation. And some students are, quite frankly, taking a very easy way out and filling out these reflective observations, and they're not being very reflective at all, which I'm not super appreciative of. Okay, so here I have a $15 million surplus, which is perfect for me. I want to be above 10 million. I'm not going to retire any stock or issue any stock this round, and let's see how I did. So I'm going into round 5. Okay, so I got back to my 578 points, and I was able to get my profit margins back to where they were at 57%. I should, by this round, I'm going to try, the end of round 5, I'm going to really try to push this up. If I can get to, say, 65%, that would be great. So I earned a lot of points in my my gross profits, and then for my return on investments and equity and assets, my revenues all increased a great deal. One forecast, okay, I lost 3 points in my forecast based on, I guess I didn't sell. I got pretty close. 99% is, I wouldn't complain about that. And I got operational investments and my surplus, so I could have made a few more points here. But 578 points is great. I'll take that. So there's a way of just giving you more focus of more help on what you need to focus on, how to remain competitive in this game. And you can see in my sales department now, I have an $8,000 operational cost reduction. When I go to make my vehicle here, let's see how far I could, okay, I can get this to 69% profit margin now. So if my goal is 65%, I think based on my operational investments, I'm going to meet those marks. So these are things that I want you to be thinking about when you're submitting your round 4 simulations. Okay, and remember that in the simulation, how is this tied to the class? Well, you definitely have to have a strategy out there. How are you competing against all the student players? What are they doing that you can do differently to get ahead and to make more money and profits and more points? What is your strategy within your company? How are you going to best your year-over-year returns? Some companies manage their sales and profits in a way to guarantee that they're going to meet their goals. And you have to be careful in the simulation for the year-over-year points. Anything that you increase greater than 100%, maybe you make one category revenues go up 150%. The points stop at 100. So some people make the mistake with operational investments. They buy all of them in one round, but you get points on how often you're able to increase your total investment in that area. So you do want to plan out your investments and how you play the game a little bit more closely. Now, a student wrote in the discussion board that the practice game is not realistic compared to the team competition. The points are not accurate or reflective, and that's because in the practice game we're playing against computer players, 2 computer players. It's a very small market. So especially as you get further away from round 1, the points, even if you're putting the same exact data in the practice round that you are in the real live competition, you are not going to see points anywhere close to the practice game. The practice game is meant to be easy and just get you started in the simulation. And you're facing, in the classroom competition, you're facing a whole host of companies run by executive level MBA students. So that's why it's so competitive. I mean, I haven't seen a game ever this competitive that this class is running. So you're sort of your own worst enemy because everyone's doing so well. It's making tough for everybody to compete with each other. And you can see here the trend profits are continuing to grow up a great deal. We have a couple companies here, $120 million in profits. Now, some of the companies who are still at the $40 million in profits, there's like 3 or 4 companies here. That's not good. You really have to assess what you're doing, and you got to get those profits up. Now, you can see here in points, this line represents a 600-point level. No one was really able to surpass the 600-point level, but most teams were between 400 and 600 points. So you see this, most teams are between 400 and 600 points, and that's really where you want to be. And there are going to be some rounds where you just can't get 400 or more points. There are rounds where your company just kind of has a small lull as you're, and this is usually when you're buying up additional plants and you're making some large investments. It's going to make your company a little sluggish to get those returns on investment and assets to give you those numbers. But as you start really incorporating those operational investments and fully utilizing the plants and capacity, your company will become much more efficient and much more profitable the following round. Remember, long-term planning, people, this is the problem with our country, and many companies have suffered this short-term planning thinking where you're only thinking 1 year out. You want to start thinking, at this point, we have year 4, 5, and 6 to go. So think 3 years out and think about your ultimate goal at the end of the games. Don't think in just 1 year increments. Try to plot it out a little bit and have a strategy moving forward for your points. You can see here that everybody increased in stock prices, and we have the same. We're at about a $60 level at the top, and which is nice. Every company in between has increased their profit margins. And the sales by team, all teams have increased their sales as well. Some teams at a higher slope than others, and the sales are almost at $500 million at this point. Earnings per share, we still had a couple of teams down here who are flat on their earnings per share. That these teams could easily rebound. They just have to make the investments in their company, increase their prices, reduce their costs, and they can get their earnings per share up quickly. They may also want to buy back stock at this point. If they issue too much stock, and that's a real drain on their earnings per share, because the more stock you have out there, the harder it is to get your earnings per share at a high per share level. So you may want to start buying back stock. That could help at that point. Now, if we look at the company rankings, we can see here that the points of the rounds, we had range of 87 to almost 600 points to the round. So this round 3 is usually a little typically sort of a midlife crisis for the companies. It is hard to do really spectacular in this round. But we could see, though, on the positive side here, we have all these companies here, which is more than 2/3 of the class, are on track or above. If you have 1,400 points or more at this point, you're definitely on track for an A in this class and the full 2,900 points or so you need to get the full points for this project. And even if what's the worst that happens if you don't get the full points for this project, you come in at 1 or 2 or 3 points below, it still doesn't ruin your chances for an A in the class. So you can actually get a score, that's not the highest in the class and still do well. Teams at the lower ends that aren't at the 1,400 point mark by this point, you really have to invest time in this game and look a little bit more closely. Now, see, the funny thing is with this class, students can take shortcuts, not read the textbook, not listen to my lectures, and just do the bare minimum, the homework, the simulation in the cases. And I see in both examples, the students who put their time in, running a lot of rounds of practice games, reading the student manual, listening to my lectures, thinking about what they're doing, they are doing well in the simulation because they're putting the time in. Now, of course, there could be a student who put the time in that didn't do as well, and that's possible too. I don't want you to think that I automatically think that you're not putting the time in if your performance isn't tops in the simulation. However, the students that I know that do put their time in, they have been doing very well. Same thing with the case studies. Some students make really great responses to my case study questions really go above and beyond to answer those questions. And some students seem like they start the project the day it's due and spend 3 hours on it before they hand it in, and it really shows when I'm grading it. I could see that they haven't bothered to do any additional research or look anything up online or even get all the conclusions on the documents I give them as supporting documents, and produce a document for me on the case study that's really not even an undergraduate level work. The time and effort you put into your assignments really does matter. So the simulation and the case studies is not an area to take a shortcut, because it becomes very obvious to me the effort you put into the assignments. And I have to say, there's a lot going on in this class between the video lectures, the MP3s, the discussion boards, the simulation, the 2 textbooks. I understand there's a lot of work, and you can't be everywhere at all times, and you may not have the time to do every possible element of this class at the point that you would like to do. And that's just schoolwork in general. You have to manage your time the best possible. So I just want to say, the majority of the discussion board responses are incredible and awesome. I'm very happy with them. The discussion boards are working out very well. Majority of people handing in the case studies have done a fantastic job, and the majority of the class is performing very well in the simulation. So I definitely think overall this is a very competitive class, and that everybody is doing, at this point, everybody's still on track for an A and doing very well. We have 3 weeks left, so everybody at the half mark is coming in very strong in this class. We just have to maintain that pace to the end of the course. Okay, so round 4 is due on Friday, and I hope that this has been helpful. I'm trying to reinforce, and it's important that you listen to these recap lectures on the simulation, because I do give hints. I do talk about some strategic management issues and topics that we're talking about in class, and I hope that you find this very helpful. Okay, I will talk to you again next week.